Have you ever wondered how some nations got so wealthy? The answer often lies buried in the past. It's a story of ambition, conquest, and exploitation. Let's be honest, it's a story about colonialism. Today we're diving deep into the shadowy history of the British Empire. We'll uncover how its wealth came at a devastating cost to others. The British Empire wasn't built overnight. It began centuries ago with small steps that grew into giant leaps. Imagine a map of the world slowly being painted red, each stroke representing another land claimed, another people conquered. It started with explorers seeking new trade routes and resources. Then came the settlers, hungry for land and opportunity. But these opportunities often came at the expense of those already living there. The early days of the British Empire were marked by violence and displacement. Indigenous populations in North America, Africa, and Asia were pushed off their ancestral lands. Their cultures, languages, and ways of life were threatened with extinction. The British Empire was built on the backs of those deemed inferior. Their labor fueled the engine of British prosperity, their suffering ignored for the sake of profit. The 16th and 17th centuries were a time of incredible change in Europe. Nations were eager to expand their power and wealth. England, with its powerful navy, was at the forefront of this race for empire. Their ships, laden with goods and bristling with cannons, sailed across the globe, establishing trading posts and colonies. One of the earliest and most significant settlements was Jamestown, Virginia, founded in 1607. This marked the beginning of England's permanent foothold in North America. The early colonists faced disease, starvation, and conflict with Native Americans. Yet, they persisted, driven by the promise of wealth and opportunity. Of course, this opportunity often meant exploiting the land and its native inhabitants. The East India Company, chartered in 1600, played a pivotal role in this expansion. This powerful trading company, with its own army and navy, quickly gained control of trade routes in Asia. They weren't shy about using force to secure their interests, manipulating local rulers and waging wars to expand their influence. The loss of the 13 colonies in the American Revolution was a major blow to the British Empire, but like a resilient game of whack-a-mole, when one colony goes down, another pops up somewhere else. Britain, never one to back down from a challenge, simply shifted its focus. They set their sights on new horizons: Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. The late 18th and early 19th centuries saw Britain gobbling up territories like a kid in a candy store. They gained control of French Canada and vast territories in India. Hong Kong, a strategic trading post, fell into British hands in 1841. This expansion wasn't just about planting flags and claiming land, it was about control of resources, trade routes, and people. Raw materials were extracted, processed, and shipped back to Britain, fueling the Industrial Revolution and lining the pockets of the British elite. It was a global system of exploitation, with Britain at the helm. By the 19th century, the British Empire stood as a colossus, bestriding the world stage. It was the undisputed global superpower, its navy ruling the waves, its influence felt on every continent. This period, known as the Pax Britannica, was characterized by relative peace and stability. Of course, this peace was often enforced by British military might and benefited Britain more than anyone else. It was a time of unprecedented British wealth and power. But this dominance came at a steep price. The empire, at its peak, encompassed nearly a quarter of the Earth's landmass and ruled over a population of hundreds of millions. The British pound was the global currency, and British culture permeated every corner of the empire. But behind this facade of power and prosperity lurked a dark underbelly. The empire's wealth was built on a system of exploitation and oppression. The story of the British Empire isn't just about maps and dates, it's about people. Real people whose lives were irrevocably altered by British rule. And often, those alterations were far from positive. Millions of Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic in the horrific transatlantic slave trade. They were treated like cargo, crammed into ships in unimaginable conditions, and forced to work on plantations in the Americas. The human toll of this trade was immeasurable, leaving scars that linger to this day. But slavery was just one facet of the British Empire's dark side. Colonial policies often led to famine and disease. Indigenous populations were decimated by introduced illnesses and forced displacement. Cultures and languages were suppressed as Britain sought to impose its own values and beliefs. The British Empire wasn't just about taking resources, it was about taking control. They implemented policies that undermined local industries, making colonies dependent on British goods. The British Empire may be a thing of the past, but its legacy continues to cast a long shadow. The arbitrary borders drawn by colonial powers, often dividing ethnic groups and igniting conflicts, still have repercussions today. Many former colonies struggle with the after-effects of colonialism. Their economies, structured to serve British interests, often struggle to achieve self-sufficiency. Political systems, modeled after British institutions, can be ill-suited to local needs and traditions. The legacy of colonialism is evident in the ongoing fight for social justice around the world. From movements demanding reparations for past wrongs to calls for the repatriation of stolen artifacts, the echoes of empire are still felt. Understanding this history is not about assigning blame, it's about acknowledging the past and its impact on the present. Only by confronting these uncomfortable truths can we begin to build a more just and equitable future for all. Eta.